a very grandmotherly-like figure. She's the one that really imparts a lot of wisdom upon me, and she's been there through some different changes in my life, especially during like spiritual awakening, and when all of this was really taking off for me, she was kind of the voice of reason and helping me emotionally get through it all. So, and this is George, that is his name. Which surprisingly, and I asked him about that, and he goes, "My mother liked the name." I'm like, okay, that works for me. Yep, so this is George, and he's very fun and funny and brotherly. He's like my brother, and he also has lots of wisdom, but he also likes to play lots of pranks, and he's here this weekend, so if you guys end up with something missing or some strange phenomenon or something moves around, it very well could have been George. So, this tall, handsome fella here, this is Snowhawk. He is, what's the word? Well, he's a guide. He visits many people. I've had many people over the years tell me that Snowhawk has appeared to them in dreams, or even in like apparitions and things like that, and that he doesn't talk much as far as like messages, but he's there just kind of holding space, and he has this real protective energy about him. So most people, and myself and us, we feel him especially whenever, not even that there's a dangerous situation that you need protection from, but him just letting you know, hey, I'm here, I'm holding space for the situation. And then this one on the end, this is Haloti, and this is a Sasquatch woman. She's like an ancient one, and I'll get into that here in a minute, the difference between them. But Haloti is, she has more human genetics to her. And my husband contacted her, or became connected with her back in 2005 in Oklahoma, actually on the Oklahoma-Texas border, where he was called out to do some research by a family that was having experiences. And so he spent a lot of time there, a few weeks, and there were other people, you know, participating in that research. And he would write notes with questions, and Haloti would write back. And there's several samples of that in Kiwani's second book, The Sasquatch People, but some profound messages, and there's even more. Actually, we published more of them from back in 2005 in the Sasquatch Message to Humanity, Book 3, because at the time, the first messages that were published was just more in alignment with what he was writing about. And now as time has gone on, and you know, humanity is evolving, and we're ready to learn more of our history and, you know, about who we are and things, we published these notes that have more details about ancient races and things like that. So I really recommend checking that out. And also, I've also written in the third Sasquatch Message to Humanity. Let me show you these books here. This is my husband's first and second book, his books. The Sasquatch People and Their Interdimensional Connection is the second one. They're actually reversed for some reason. So The Psychic Sasquatch was the first one, published in 1998. It has a lot of great stories and information, a lot of scientific data about how the Sasquatch and UFOs and ETs are connected and things like that, and lots of great stories in it. And then his second book, The Sasquatch People, he published in 2011. And personally, that's the one that really changed my life. That's the one that I first found, and when actually, it was even before I read it. I think I just read the introduction, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is the rest of my life right here. And it was. And this is before I ever met Kiwani. I mean, that's a whole other story, how we got together. You know, the Sasquatch really initiated that too. They totally played Cupid with us when we weren't ready. So, but it was time. So the universe was ready. And now, so we've been married just over 5 years, and we live in just outside of Chewelah, Washington now. But it's really awesome the way that it all came together, because our, well, let's start, okay, let me follow my notes, because otherwise I'll be all over the place. But anyhow, yes, this year of our Sasquatch retreat, like I said, we just wrapped up our 4th year, 333 people. It's amazing, and the energy is what's felt more than anything. Everybody that's there knows that. It's not even the knowledge, and it's not even the people, and it's not even the Sasquatch. It's just collectively, it's family, and it's just beautiful. And so many people recognize, oh my gosh, this is like all the people I've been waiting my whole life, or how many lifetimes to meet. So, yes. So in 2012 is when I really started waking up to a spiritual awakening, I guess you could say. And I started really understanding my own connection to the divine. And I was researching a lot of Native American personal ancestry, and then just also history and the different cultures and things like that. And so that's what kind of set me in alignment with the whole natural thinking, you know, renewed my passion for earth and nature and all of those things, and also history and ancestry. And so at that time also, and I've also felt a connection to the star beings and things like that. And in 2012, in December 2012, on the 12th, December 12th, 2012, I had just received Kiwoni's book. And that evening, I had a dream about him. I saw a photo of him on the back of the book, so I knew what he looked like. And I had a dream about him, and it was really simple. I was standing in the woods just outside of a cave entrance, like I was waiting for somebody to come down off the hill or something. I was standing there waiting for what, I don't know. And then Kiwoni comes out of the cave that I'm standing next to, and he just says, "Kelly." And I'm like, "Who are you?" You know, he says, "Kelly, follow me." And in the dream, without any hesitation, without any question, I just followed him into the cave, and there the dream ended. It was like literally a few seconds long, but it was so profound. And I woke up and I'm thinking, why did I have this dream, and why did I just follow the stranger into a cave? You know? So to me, it was a sign. The following day, the next night, I had quite an experience in my home where Suni was one of them. Suni came to me, as well as an ET that looked very much human, but you could tell he was not human. He had a big head, he was smaller, he had like a light bulb kind of shaped head, and he was very serious feeling, just he was there for business. And so he was, I thought, extracting eggs from me. And so I knew that there was a part of this. I was aware, I had been given a message or a sign that I was going to be participating in some kind of hybrid type program. And so I assumed, okay, this is the beginning of that. And Suni was there to really comfort me, because I was, you know, I mean, that's kind of a scary situation for a lot of people. And so, but I wasn't scared. And she was just there to calm me and soothe me and let me know that, you know, this is for your highest good. You volunteered for this. It's time. The time is now. And I recognize that. So once that happened, the following day, I woke up and I was not the same person at all. Life had completely changed, and so this was on my mind very big that day. And that night, I ended up calling, or the following night, I ended up calling Kiwoni on December 14th, because his contact information was in the back of the book. And I didn't even realize I was calling, I just did. He was on the other end of the phone before I realized, what did I just do? And why am I even calling? And what am I going to talk to him about? You know, but so that was kind of the beginning of the rest of my life there. And so he was a mentor for me, just kind of helping me to put things into perspective. And then after a few months, the Sasquatch started telling me and telling him and telling several other people that Kiwoni was connected with, people that are in contact with the Sasquatch. And we're all getting the messages that, hey, you and Kelly are soulmates, or you need to get to know each other a little better. You guys are going to work together, all these different kinds of messages. And it's like, okay, you know, still a little overwhelming to me. And the whole soulmate thing was just like, I don't know who this person is, and he's 2,000 miles away, and how many years older, and, you know, and I had a 2-year-old son at the time. I was like, no, no, no. But, you know, they were like, yes, yes, yes. So that's kind of how all that happened. And before I even met Kiwoni as well, I'm a dreamer. I can tell the difference between dreams and then like reality dreams. And I had this reality type dream where there was a bunch of people. I was aware that we were in Washington, even though I lived in Arkansas at the time. I was living in Mountain Home, Arkansas. So. I had this dream of a bunch of people sitting around a campfire, singing songs, and the Sasquatch were among them. And I was also aware in this dream that it was September. Why, I don't know. And so, you know, I just kind of held on to that. I didn't know what that meant. It's like, is this just a party, or, you know, I didn't know. I didn't give too much thought to it. And then things evolved. We get inspired to do this conference, which was intended to just be a one-day, kind of like this, like a one-day little gathering. And 150 people showed up from several different countries, and it was like, oh wow, okay, so this is a little bit more than just, you know, a little gathering. And it was at this ideal location where you can do campouts and everything, so we turned it into a 2-day thing at least. And then it's just continued to grow from there. And so, like Reva said, this year 333 people. Next year we're expecting more. So, and we have that Labor Day weekend every year too. So, out there in Chewelah, Washington. But even the location of it, we had found. Kiwoni's a master dowser. He does map dowsing. So while we were close to the Chewelah area, or in Stevens County, we connected with the Sasquatch and we asked them, hey, where can we go to meet with you? Or, you know, basically, where do you want us to go? We want to just have fun, explore the woods, where should we go? And so on the map, he kept dowsing to this location in Chewelah, up Flowery Trail Road. And so we just decided, all right, let's just take a drive up there. And we see a sign for this place called the Chewelah Peak Learning Center. And I said, hey, let's go see what that is. And there was nobody there at the time. It's a beautiful facility. We walk around the side of the building, and there's 3 Sasquatch up in the woods waving at us, just greeting us. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, so this is where we were meant to be. You know, I was also like taken aback by the facility. I was like, what is this place? It's so cool. And so I'm peeking through the windows and everything, and I told Kiwoni at the time, and we weren't even living in Chewelah. We didn't even know where we were gonna live yet. And, but I told Kiwoni, peeking in those windows, I said, you know, I have this weird feeling that I'm gonna work here one day. And, you know, so now this is the place that we're hosting this conference for the last 4 years. So that's just another inspiration from the Sasquatch before it ever even began. And that's kind of how I recognize that I'm on the right track too, because I'll have these visions or these thoughts before it ever happens, and then when real time and reality catches up, it's okay, well that's exactly what that was and where it's meant to be. And so that's a way that the Sasquatch works with people too. You know, we're all multi-dimensional beings. The Sasquatch have many more gifts and skills that they're able to utilize more than humans can, because they are able to manipulate, they're able to raise their vibration or change their frequency so that they're undetected by the frequency that we're in, or, you know, or whatever. Like, for example, you hear of babies and children and animals and things that are real sensitive to things that others can't see, and that's because they're at a different frequency and they're able to detect that. And so the Sasquatch can switch back and forth too. They can decide to be fully physical. There's many of them that are, let's say, earthbound. They're primarily physical beings. They're on the earth, walking the earth, eating the food, you know, spending time with the animals, all of that. And while they do have these multi-dimensional gifts, they don't always all use them, because they're also at different places in their consciousness, just as we all are. We're all on our own path, and we're all learning as we go, and we have to learn. Just the Sasquatch have to learn their gifts and skills too. They're born with a lot of it, but the children have to be taught and constantly reminded, and that's why you don't see or hear of a whole lot of children being sighted either, because they're very well protected. You know, the females stay with them very much. So it's not that the females and babies aren't ever heard of, or, you know, that kind of thing. And especially now, as we're kind of bridging this gap and connecting more with them and understanding who they are, you know, it's the whole world doesn't all think that they're myths, they're monsters anymore. This truth is getting out there as to who they are and who we are, our connection to them. You know, they are our elder brothers. We share DNA. The Sasquatch are 99.5% human. And so that other little percentage is something unknown, something not on this planet. So, you know, that tells you right there that they're connected with the stars as well, but we all are. We're all made of stardust, right? So, you know, it's a real beautiful connection with them if you allow yourself to open up to that. But it's, the Bigfoot world is very diverse. There's all kinds of schools of thought and all kinds of belief systems and things like that. And it doesn't mean that any of them are wrong or any of them are right. It's all your own personal truth. You know, because as much as I talk about, you know, the Sasquatch are loving beings and they have all this wisdom and stuff, there's a lot of people that will tell you, no, they're not. They're evil, or they attacked me, or, you know, this kind of things, and that's their truth. You know, you can't change somebody else's reality. But there's also many, many different beings that are, that may do something like that, and not necessarily the Sasquatch, but, you know, you like to think that all humans are nice, but we know that they're not, you know, so it's important to practice discernment and discrimination, to try to tune into that energy. Asking permission is a big thing to go into their area, or if you're going to do anything that's really involving the connection between other souls, or energetically, anything like that, it's best to ask permission and to be just straightforward. Even, you know, just with the Sasquatch, say, hey, I'm here, I'm going to be presenting this material, or hey, I'd really like to come out and visit your area, you know, whatever it is. And so sit with that and see how it feels. And if you're getting a feeling of fear or of, oh no, I shouldn't do that, then you shouldn't do that. You know, so that's the best advice I can give. And there's a lot of there's a lot of scary stories out there, but don't let that bother you. You know, it's fear is what perpetuates that, more fear. And so the more that you can trust and the more that you can open up and allow and just be open-minded about these things, the better your experience is going to be. But, you know, the folks that are just fearful of, you know, being attacked or whatever the issue may be, that's what they're creating for themselves. That's going to become their reality. So that's and that's one of the big messages that the Sasquatch are always giving as well, is that you do create your own reality. And they've, in the Sasquatch Message to Humanity, Book 3, I'll show you these here, there's a lot of wonderful information. These 3 books are, and they're all here available too, they're all channeled information. Book 1 and Book 2 was written by Sunbow, and this is also an incredible story. I could tell stories all day. But I connected with Sunbow at the end of September 2015, and I was on Facebook, and I was inspired for some reason to start looking through a group. I can't even remember what group it was. Something about contact experiences. And I've never looked through it, but I just started scrolling through and I see pictures of Sasquatch there, and I was like, oh, hey, what's this, you know? And it was a channeled message from the Sasquatch that Sunbow had channeled, and it was the most beautiful message I had ever read, and it was in complete alignment with everything that my husband and I are doing. And so I was just, who is this person, and why don't I know him, and why doesn't he know us, and you know, what is this? So I connected with him, and that message that I read was actually the 7th message, so it would be the 7th chapter of the first book. And then he sent me the first 6 that he wrote, and he didn't know that he would continue to do this. He just knew that he needed to write down this information that was coming through. And then once we connected, you know, I said, oh my God, this has to be published. And he continued to write it, and so the first book actually contains 50 chapters, 50, they're shorter, it's a small book, you know, but 50 different messages that are just the most incredible information that I've ever come across. It explained everything that I've ever questioned in my life. Everything about Earth's history, everything about the Sasquatch's history, human history, the way that we're all connected, you know, just so many different psychic things that it's, I really recommend it, especially if you have any questions stirring in your mind. I think that book could really help put a lot of things into perspective for you. And so I didn't even know. That was another thing that the Sasquatch kind of inspired, was the whole publishing, because I never published a book, but I knew I had to, so there we go. And then, so after that was done, Sunbow started channeling more messages through the Sasquatch, which is the 2nd book, and that's larger, and it's got more, more dense information. I don't want to say quite scientific, but it goes deep into the different dimensions and different realities and different things that are multi-dimensional nature, I should say, because that really sums up a lot of different things. So it talks about time and space and how all of that doesn't exist, and you know, all of these things. So and they precede each other. I mean, they could all stand alone as well, but if you are really wanting to learn more of who you are and learn to master some of your interdimensional skills, I would recommend reading them in order, because they're very helpful. And the 3rd book was published last year. After Sunbow wrote the first 2, he and I both kind of got the message that the torch was being passed on to me, and that I would be channeling some information for the third book. So the first 12 chapters are written by me in the third book. Lots of different information, some history, and lots of good woo-woo stuff on how to heal and all of this stuff. And then there's also 9 other authors in there. Sunbow is one, my husband Kiwoni is one, and so then there's also 7 others that communicate with the Sasquatch and wrote messages in there. So they are excellent, wonderful information in there. Talks about how Sasquatch can also communicate through dreams, visions and apparitions, or the different types of the subtle ways that they communicate. The breeze that picks up in front of you, the feather that falls in your lap, all those different things, as well as telepathy, because there's many different kinds of telepathy. A lot of people assume that you hear voices and things like that, and for me personally, it's not that way. I get visions, or I get downloads of information, usually through pictures, and then it's my job basically to translate them into words. And sometimes the Sasquatch will say direct words, sometimes it's audible, sometimes you'll hear their voice and their accent, so there's that kind of telepathy. There's the visual telepathy, and then there's the feeling telepathy too. That's the heart space, the emotions. I've had several people tell me, especially those that have attended the retreat in Chihuahua, that they'll just be blasted with this love energy, and they can't do anything but shake and cry and just like be in love with everything at once. It's an amazing feeling, and once you experience that, I mean, it changes you. It really does. So yeah, the Sasquatch also emphasize the time is now. That's one of their big phrases. The time is now. So the time is now for change. The time is now for whatever. The time is now for you, for collectively, for humanity, but especially to bridge this gap, between the different realities and the different worlds. As we all know, we're all here on Earth, so we can see this duality, and we can see all these things that are playing out, and the him and her, and the Republican and the Democrat, and the black and white, and all these different things that people want to argue about and create. They want to separate. They want to create a reality of separatism for every different thing, or labeling, or how am I different? And the Sasquatch are emphasizing, no, how are you the same? You're all the same. You're all humans. You're all on Earth. You're all in this together. You all have to share the same resources, all of this different stuff. And it's like, wouldn't you get along a lot better if you all got along? And so that's what they emphasize, and it's not just kind of finger pointing and, hey, you need to do this and that. It's not like that. They want to help us. They really want to help us evolve, and actually that's part of their role. That's why they're here. Partly, we all have many different missions, but they're also wonderful carekeepers for the Earth, because humans aren't, for the most part. So the Sasquatch are really helping with all of that. But humans really are destroying the world. And so they need, they're emphasizing, hey, this now is the time for change. And things are changing. People are evolving. There's all these big movements stepping up and coming out. And so that's really wonderful to see. And that's a great blessing. And, ultimately, the feeling that I get is that we're all going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Everything will be fine, but we still have to work at it. We can't just say, oh, yeah, I'm just going to, keep doing my own thing and trust it. No, we all have to put our energy and our effort into that and change ourselves. The change begins here. It's not, you you can't change the world around you. You can only change yourself. You can only change the world within you. And then when you do that, the whole world around you changes. So, and yeah, so the Sasquatch also really emphasize peaceful interspecies relations. And so that means not only with their race of beings or the different star races, not only with animals and other humans and nature, you know, but all together in all ways of life. Even with the trees, we can communicate with anything that's organic, anything with life. And us humans forget about that frequently, and all we have to do is, you know, learn how to tune into that, because we are connected to everything. Everything has a consciousness to it, anything living. So, and even some things not living, I'm pretty convinced. So, I'll just go into a little bit of the history that the Sasquatch have taught us. And a lot of this material is in the first Sasquatch Message to Humanity, the purple one here. And so they were seeded here. They explained that they were seeded here by star races, by the star elders. I prefer to call the Sasquatch elders and the star people elders, because that's really what they are. All the names that you hear for Bigfoot and Sasquatch and stuff, they all come from different cultures. So there's not really an official name that everybody knows them by, but Sasquatch is really the most common now, or Bigfoot, you know. But they said that they were seeded here. They were created by star elder races using the genetics of other different races. Primarily Pleiadian, but not exclusively, but a lot of Pleiadian DNA, and then also an Earth native, because the Earth was already here, and they were seeded in the area called, which was Lemuria, or Mu, and at that time there were giant lemurs here on Earth in Lemuria, and so they used the DNA from those giant lemurs, and from a great bear, and some star DNA, like I said, primarily Pleiadian, but it's all different, to create these beings here on Earth. And they were created to have this, I mean, they're huge and they're hairy, and they have all this strength, and they have all these things that they're physically able to do here. They're built to survive on Earth. We're not. Okay, I mean, look at everything that we need to do to survive, and that was part of the plan as well, so that we would remember, you know, yeah, we need to remember these things. So yeah, the Sasquatch were built to really survive in raw nature. They can move boulders. They, you know, can stay warm in the cold, and all of these things. And so they're here to help teach us and remind us of all of that. But they were seeded here, they said, about 200 million years ago on Earth. 200 million years. And we humans have been here about 50 million years. That's longer than most people even realize. So, but about 50 million years, but think of that, 150 million years they have over us. I mean, think of all the wisdom that has come in that time. So they really are wonderful stewards of Earth. They've kind of been there, done that. So they're wonderful teachers for whatever it is that the human experience is going through. And I also like to say that nature is the best teacher. You know, because you can only put so much trust and confidence into any kind of being, whether they're human or Sasquatch or, you know, E.T., you know, but nature doesn't lie. And the Sasquatch follows nature, you know, so specifically. Just look at the natural cycles of everything. You know, life is like this. Actually, it's more like this, you know? But just to go with that rhythm and that flow is very important. When you look at there's the 4 seasons. We also have 4 seasons within us. What do we do in the winter? We hunker down. That's what the animals do too, so don't feel bad about all of these different phases and webs and ebbs that we go through, because that's all a part of the human experience. Let's see what other pictures I have. Aha! This was a huge track that we found up at Cholula Peak, at the Cholula Peak Learning Center. I believe this was it last year? No, this was in 2017, in June 2017, where I was actually just going up there to the Learning Center to kind of prepare for the conference that year, kind of collect a little bit of data. And so we took a hike and boom, there was that big track. And we found some others as well, but this one was the deepest and like really the most obvious. There's Sunbow's hand compared next to it so that you can also get a real good comparison of size there. We estimate, based on this track, that this being must be about 18 feet tall. Can you imagine that? I mean, wow, 18 feet tall. So, yes. Yeah, and like I was saying earlier too, with how diverse the world of Sasquatch is, and that there's the scientific method, which is neither right nor wrong, all of them. There is a lot of science to completely prove their existence. I mean, what more do you need than a giant footprint? What more do you need than hair that we have that's been submitted for study? Dr. Melba Ketchum, let me think of the Human Genome Project is what she's working on out of Texas. And so she's done a lot of studies with this. She's collected hair and feces samples and things like that. And so some of the hair that she's collected has been tested, and they found that this hair was 99% human, but 1% not human. And so, the scientists are sitting there scratching their heads, but since they're so closely related to humans, they've actually been given the Sasquatch have been given the scientific name Homo sapien cognatus, and cognatus means ancestor, human ancestor. So even the science is proving that, but science doesn't usually listen to that either. So it depends on who the scientist is, right?
Right.
And then there's the whole, the paranormal aspect of things that people are learning and understanding, and how it's connected to the ETs and the star races, or there's so many different encounters and reports of UFOs and things like that being reported at the same time that the Sasquatch are. Hundreds, thousands of stories like this, eyewitnesses, all kinds of different people that have this understanding, or like myself, where two of them came as Sasquatch and an ET at the same time, so undeniable to me. Of course they work together, but that's still, how much can you prove of that? That goes outside of the whole scientific paradigm, but that doesn't make it any less true, because how could all of these thousands of people be, experiencing the same kind of thing? And then there's also the quantum aspect of things, which kind of goes along with paranormal, but that's more, quantum physics and quantum mechanics is an area of science, basically, that can't be proven. So that's where it's thrown into, is the quantum mechanics, which is fine. But it's still not easy to explain that. So the easiest way to explain it and to feel it and to know the Sasquatch and the connection with them is through spirit. It's through our heart. It's through our emotions. and all of that, and that's how they prefer to communicate, and that's how they prefer to make themselves known. A lot of people are blessed to have physical sightings, and a lot of people are blessed to have, different kinds of interactions with them and things like that, but nothing ever compares to the heartfelt connection to them. And once you feel that, there's really just no going back to it. And the whole science doesn't matter anymore, because you're like, well, it's true. I know it's true because I feel that truth. And so that's where it's going and where it's evolving, and you can't convince people of that. I don't try to convince people or tell them they're wrong or this and that. All you can do is plant a seed and, say, I hope that you get to experience this. And it might be, that's hogwash or whatever, but I can't tell you how many people have come up to me a couple years later and said, oh my God, you were right. Oh, you'll never believe what happened. And, so that happens quite a bit. Let's see. Yes, this is some of Camus' hair. Camus is the eldest elder. He's the one that channeled the messages to Sunbow in the first two books, and the Message to Humanity books. And so we were, actually, he found this hair. We were together up at Chewila Peak. Was it this? No, it was not the same day we found that track. This was a year later. We had just gotten done doing a short little ceremony and prayer, and we walk up to the amphitheater, and there was this big chunk of hair laying there. And Camus confirmed that this was a gift from him. And this quote here is a direct quote from Camus from the second book. This is the ultimate gift of trust and friendship that we can offer, apart from our spiritual support. If all the many signs and manifestations given were not enough to convince you of our presence, this hair will stay with you to remind you that we're never separated in the spiritual realm, and that our interdimensional, interspecies friendship is as real as you are. So they gift us these wonderful gifts, on occasion. I have some of this hair with me in a necklace. I'm not wearing it right now, but I carry that with me. So there's the hair, and then there's, the tracks, and there's these wonderful gifts that they give us to remind us of the signs of their presence, but we can't expect a whole lot more than that. I mean, how much more do you need? And scientists will argue we need a body, or hey, we at least need a tooth or something like that, but no, you don't. They're not going to stop it there. And I think we're all aware that there's darker forces that we're not known about, and they know how to reach the Sasquatch. They can get a hold of them. So, and that's also a big part of their message, like I said earlier, using discernment and discrimination, not only with any messages that you hear, or not only with any kind of truth or information that you might hear about the Sasquatch, but also, the people as well, I guess, the information that they're sharing. Because there's no experts, yet we're all experts. We're all experts in our own truth. So, and like I said, in the messages that they give us, it helps to plant seeds, to help us to remember who we are and why we're here. And that's really what they want to help remind us of. So this is a photo. I think I put 3 of them in here. I think this was from last year's conference, because I made this before the conference this year. Darrell Stokes is a gentleman that attends our conference, and he has this wonderful gift of being able to photograph orbs like you wouldn't believe. He calls them in. He works with the spirits, and he calls them in. There's literally hundreds of these pictures. If you want to look me up on Facebook, you can look through them. There's literally hundreds of them. But this is a good one because you can see, you know, in comparison, you can see the layers. Oh, this isn't gonna let me zoom in. But you can see the people in the background, so you can see these orbs are, you know, in front of them, on top of them, and things. This is how they can appear, as well as, you know, physical or in apparition form and things like that. But especially at these gatherings, I notice, and if we're going to gather tonight in front of the fire, bring your cameras with flash. Really, do it. Do it. You'll find some cool stuff, I bet. Because, well, like I was telling Reva last night out there at the worship circle, there were 3 of them. Actually, there was a fourth, kind of a clan leader that was in the background. I was aware of his presence, and but he was just observing, and he kind of sent this family of 3 out to observe and to study, not so much to interact unless they were comfortable with it, but they wanted to observe. I think they've never gotten that close to humans. And so the clan leader was the one that was kind of giving the push. Go on, you can do it. And so it was a family of 3, a father, a mother, and a little girl that was like around 8. And the father, I could only pick up like a nickname, which was Tan Tan. And so he's the one that or last night anyway, he was feeling a curiosity to interact. So, you know, if anybody's wanting to interact with Tan Tan today, I think he might be open to it. And sometimes it really just takes a friendly gesture from a human to open you up, you know? Have you ever been in a bad mood and then somebody walks by and smiles and says, "Hey, how are you?" And all of a sudden your mood changes. And so very much the same, you know, for the Sasquatch. If you're aware of them, just say, "Hey, Tan Tan, how are you? I'd love to interact." And he might be, "Oh, okay, I just might do that then." And his partner and his child, I did not feel they wanted to interact. They just wanted to observe. So, but they're very curious about us humans that want to gather and talk about them and learn about them, and it must be kind of flattering to them as well, you know? Yeah, there's another one from last year. It looks like a snowstorm. It's incredible, all the orbs that show up. Here's some kind of apparition forming in this one. So it's incredible. Every year at the retreat, there's more and more of these. I only put these 3 in so as not to bore you, but you know there's all kinds of colors that come through, all kinds of lights. It's really amazing, and that's, you know, just looking at this on photographs doesn't necessarily prove anything either. But you can see there's something going on there. It wasn't snowing. It's not dust. There's something going on. Oh, and this was this year? No, this is last year. This was last year when we had 222 people, believe it or not, and this year 333. It's like these magic numbers. So, and we had 222 people gathered last year, and then here's just a section, so you can see the circle, you can see the whole circle, and here you're seeing not even a quarter of the circle. So you can see how much that's grown. That's Clifford Mahooty and Sunbow in the middle by the teepee, and that was Friday morning when we were doing a ceremony. This is a photograph that my husband has. It was actually given to him. It was taken by somebody that's wanted to remain anonymous because he didn't want to be a part of his name being attached to the Sasquatch thing. But this was back in 1992, before, you know, minds were opening up more about this kind of thing. But this is an ancient one taken in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in Colorado. in April 1992, and it's kind of zoomed in there. But the gentleman that took this picture said there were actually 3 of them that walked right in front of him. This was the second one. He saw the first one go by and he was just, what did I just see? You know, and so he went to go grab his camera, or maybe this was the third one, but this was the best shot that he got. He had another one that was just kind of a blur and you could barely tell what it was. But this was the best shot that we got of it. And this is a being that we call an ancient one, and which is, and just a label, just a title for them. But they are a newer race than the Sasquatch even, because they have different DNA, they have a different kind of genetic and physical build and makeup as well. Their heads are more round like ours instead of having the cone like the Sasquatch do. And they're also a bit more proportionate like the Sasquatch. Their arms hang down lower, and the ancient ones are more human looking in their stature. And they have other gifts too. Well, they're able to integrate more human type things. Like I said, Haloti, who was writing the letters back to Kiwoni, most of them cannot write, but she was taught how to write because her grandmother, who she called Sally, her grandmother worked with the humans, with the Native Americans, and they did trading, and it's a rare thing, but she did have interaction with humans, and she learned how to read and write. And so she taught this to her granddaughter, Haloti. So that is a rare thing, but I mean, it's a real blessing to be able to read the words of the Sasquatch directly, or the ancient ones directly. Let's see. And this is another one blown up. It looks kind of blurry there, but this was another photograph. This was taken in Victoria, British Columbia, in the summer of 1986, and I don't have the faraway view, but this is in Bouchard Gardens, a big beautiful area, and in this photograph, this was very much in the background, just barely noticeable, so we zoomed in on it, but it's undoubtedly, that's a Sasquatch walking by right there, and this is a Sasquatch, so you can kind of see the difference in the shape. The head is a little higher, and he doesn't really have a neck, how the neck and the back just run together. So that's different ways. These are physical pictures to really show the difference between them. Let's see. This is a picture I drew of Camus. That's whose hair you saw in the picture earlier. And this is also the elder that channeled the information to Sunbow that he transcribed for the Sasquatch Message to Humanity books. He asked me to draw him, and I really don't feel that it's that perfect of a depiction of him, but I tried to redraw him and it turned out the same. So I was like, okay, that's it. And he asked me to include it in one of those books. So I did, but it very much, even if it doesn't look identical to him, his energy is there. If you look in his eyes, you can feel him. You can feel that wisdom and the energy in him. And Camus is considered, he is the eldest elder of the Sasquatch. I don't want to say a leader in any kind of way, really, but he's been around longer. He has a lot of wisdom, and he's on a mission now to work with the humans. He had an opportunity to pass on, which is a good thing for them. You just go into the next role, So he had an opportunity to more or less graduate, and he chose to stay here on Earth, helping us humans. So it makes me cry. Mm-hmm. So he's a beautiful soul, and so this is who's leading this whole movement more than anything. Yeah. Oh, and here's another picture of Suni. This is one that I drew. The one that Ashley did in the first picture, she used this picture to go off of. But this is one that I drew when I first met her, and so she's really wonderful. And so this is just such an amazing thing to be able to gather like this here and talk about these kinds of things openly, and now it's going throughout the whole country and throughout the world. Igor's going to take it back to Russia with him, and you know, and we're gathering in Washington, and now here in Kentucky. There's talk about maybe North Carolina. There's talk about maybe Arkansas. There's been lots of talk about California, but I haven't seen that happen yet. So, you know, but people are getting inspired to do this themselves too. And, you know, I'm invited. I'd love to attend them, but it's just more exciting to know that that the message is getting out there to more people, more groups of people. And then once people start experiencing this for themselves, I mean, the physical aspect is exciting. If you see a Sasquatch, that is exciting. That is life-changing. But that's not it. Just wait till you feel them. You know, wait until you're able to really connect with them and really see the signs of their presence, or really have them gift you something physical, or you know, or sometimes like it's not even physical. Sometimes it's just this something that enters your heart, and this knowing and this love, and that's what it's all about right there. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter what they eat. It doesn't matter how big their feet are. What matters is their spirit and their energy and our connection to them and our willingness to learn from them and to do our part. Because we are, you know, the Sasquatch have been here on Earth taking great care of the Earth for a long time, and then the humans come along and we really mess things up, and we have to fix it. The Sasquatch cannot fix it. This is our karma. This is what we did, and so we have to change it. And like I said, that sounds like a huge job, but all you have to do is change yourself. You don't have to change the world. Just change your perceptions, one little step at a time. Just one little thing at a time, you know? Like, oh, you know what? I'm going to start every morning when I wake up, I'm just going to start saying thank you. Start with that. Start with that. Thanking, you know, the universe for life. Just start there, and then it'll keep building from there. And you'll keep getting inspired with more, you know, new things that you can do to help yourself, to bring yourself peace. And when you have peace and when you have love, you just shine that on everybody else. So, well, it's 10:05, so I suppose it's done. And is there any questions? Yes?
You had mentioned the different names that humans have for Sasquatches.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have a name for themselves?
Not that I'm aware of. No, they call themselves the people, I've heard, but I don't know if they all call themselves the people, but I've heard them sometimes refer to themselves as the people, or the first people, because that's one thing I did not get into. I can just kind of quickly go through that. Before the Sasquatch people were seated on Earth, there was many different races before the Sasquatch. So when the Earth was created, it was mostly all a planet of water, and so the first people here on the planet were the fish people, the mer people. And then after time, like eons, we're talking a long time, the primary, they evolved, and the primary race on Earth were the ant people, and then the lizard people, or the reptoids, and then the bird people. And so that we're talking a huge, long evolution, millions of years. And, you know, of these different beings that were the primary beings on the planet, caretaking the planet. And so after the bird people came the first mammal people, and that's the Sasquatch. So that's why they say they're the first people. So yeah, they're the first mammal people, and now we're mammals like them. So we're still in this evolution, you know, and we're a part of them. You know, we wouldn't consider ourselves fish people. Well, maybe some people would. But right. But so we're a part of the same race. We're all a part of the mammal people, and like I said, that's what they want us to remember, instead of all this, you know, yeah, you're male, you're female, you're blonde, you have dark hair, and you know, all these ways to label each other and to create separatism. They're like, no, none of that exists. There's no difference at all. You know. Any other questions? May I take a picture? Do you mind? I gotta do that.